just give it maybe a minute to allow people to join on, and then you can take it away whenever you're ready to go.
Sounds good. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, well, with that minute, I'll get started and just give a little bit of background. So I'm here to welcome everybody to World Wetlands Week. It's Tuesday, and we have a great lineup this afternoon. I'm presenting, my name is Lee McGahey, and I'm with the River Institute, but I'm just coordinating for the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. And I'd like to say to MCA, thank you so much for putting on this event. It's great to have people from, all around the area being able to share the work they do. I'm excited to introduce today water rangers. So I've known Kat Kavanagh, who's the executive director and founder of Water Rangers, for a few years now. And we've been working with their Water Rangers kits, and I'm excited that her team will get to present today on the work that they're doing. So I'm going to leave it there with saying we're going to be having a talk from Laura Gilbert and Juno Gerain, and I'll hand it over to the Water Rangers team.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. As mentioned, my name is Juno Guerra. I go by she, and I'm the science education coordinator here at Water Rangers, and I also manage our open data programs. I'm joining from the unceded territory of the Algonquin people in the Mississippi Valley, just outside of Ottawa, and I'm co-presenting with my colleague, Laura Gilbert, who's the community research coordinator, I believe is your title, Laura, who's joining from the unceded territory of the Gamingahaga in Montreal. So we're going to begin with a brief overview of the organization, which Laura is going to present to y'all, and then we'll bounce back to me, and I'll give you a quick demo of some of the tools that we have for water quality monitoring, and we'll do a little experiment with snow that I went out and collected on my road. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Laura. And she'll give you an introduction to Water Rangers.
Thanks, Juno, for that introduction, and to Leigh also. So as Juno mentioned, my name is Laura, and I work with Water Rangers as the Community Research Coordinator. And I'm also doing a PhD at McGill that looks at the human-water relationship and how different things we do can improve that relationship. And one of those things is community-based water monitoring, which is what Water Rangers is all about. So that's great. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to how Water Rangers started, how it got to where we are, and what we do exactly before Juno talks to you a little bit more about some of the awesome tools that we have. Water Rangers started, I think, Juno, you need to mute your mic. So Water Rangers started, as Leigh mentioned in the introduction, with Kat Kavanagh, who's the founder, because her dad was part of a lake association, so Lake McLaughlin, which is in Val-des-Monts, so on the Quebec side of Ottawa. And he would go out every summer and he would test the water monthly. So he would take some water samples and then he would send them to the lab, and the lab would give the results back to the Lake Association, who would then put it in a report and send it out to everybody, but only a few months later at the end of the summer. So he could do a test in June and only see the results in September because of all the administrative aspects of it. But not only that, when he would get the results, they were often in this complicated scientific jargon that didn't really mean anything to him and to a lot of the people around the lake that had access to the report. And the people who didn't have access to the report were like, hey, how can I have access to all this information? I want to know how my lake's doing. So all of this inspired Kat to create Water Rangers. So it started as a competition. So Kat won the aqua hacking competition in 2016. And so initially she started off with just an online data platform, which is waterrangers.ca. I'll hopefully show you a little bit of it at the end of my little talk. So it was just an online repository for everyone to be able to put data, so an open data platform. And there was also a matching app, so you could go on the water, do some water quality tests, and add all of that information to be able to share with everyone. And as time went on, people were like, hey, this is great, but all these tools, all of these lab tests, they cost a lot of money. I don't really know how to get results right away or how to interpret all of the lab results that I'm getting. So Kat and a few others developed these test kits that Juno will be walking you through that give you all of the results right away of a few basic tests that can tell you if your lake is healthy or not. And it really helps you just get some baseline information, so what we call baseline data, to just see what are some normal parameters like pH and conductivity and dissolved oxygen in your water body, so that if ever all of a sudden you notice that there's a large change in one of these parameters, then you can go and get some more detailed and specific tests with the lab. So you're not spending your money and your time, your energy every week or every month doing these expensive lab tests. So we now have over 2,500 users, 140 groups, and almost 30,000 observations on the data platform. And we also share the data with the data stream platform for the groups who want to. We have that new option. If you have any questions about that, you can ask Juno, because she set it up and she's real knowledgeable about it. And we've made sure that everything is explained in grade 5 language or lower, because we really want all the resources to be accessible to everyone, no matter what their background is, whether or not it's scientific. And our test kits themselves are also easy to use for people of most ages. So usually grade 5 and up, easy to use. And we also have some parents and some school programs where we work with younger kids as well. So it's great. I wanted to show you guys a bit of an example of what the website looks like. If I can share my screen. Ooh, this worked out. Can people see my screen? Thumbs up if you can. Yeah, okay, perfect. So I just wanted to show you some of our groups. So this is the platform, the online platform. If you go to app.waterrangers.ca, and then you can just click on groups, you can see some of the awesome groups that are sharing all of this information with us. One of our groups that we love is this group, the County Sustainable Group, which does a lot of their work right here in this region. So you can see they've outlined it and they've marked the region that they work in most. But we have quite a few groups in the US that use our platform. They don't have our test kits, they just really like to use it to share data with everyone. And they do some really great work. So we have some in Mississippi. So this is one of them. So the Mississippi Water Stewards, and they have 604 different observations. So that means different times they went out and they put a bunch of different information in the spots in different places. And I've just pulled up the summary of one location. So one place that they've tested consistently, just to show you how we put information, which is really nice. So this is a location created by this gentleman, William Mitchell, in Pearl River, so in Mississippi. And as you can see, over time, the website will create these little graphs for you. So let's say for pH, so you can see what more or less your pH is. And then when there's little spikes, these aren't huge spikes. So we just went from 6.5 to 7. But if you ever had a much larger spike up or down, you could try to question yourself, like, why is this happening? Is it seasonal? Is it because I went at a different time of the day and pH does vary throughout the day? Could it be something like that? Or let's say we see the water temperature. See, it looks pretty cyclical. So this might be due to seasons, most likely. And they also check a lot of different parameters. So they send their samples to the lab to get E. coli test done. So when it's red, it's over the recommended limit. So you can see that this place that's being tested has quite a bit of E. coli, so above limits. So it goes from 100 to almost 2,500 on here, and they have coliforms. So this is just to give you an idea of how monitoring regularly can show you some differences. So here we have some spike in the oxygen. This might be a mistake actually in how they entered their data. There's probably a period missing 8.2, so that's up to us to reach out to them to fix that up. But otherwise, you would be able to pick up some changes. So that's it for me and the platform. I'll pass it on to Juno. Let me stop sharing, and she can tell you more about the test kits themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of our Freshwater Explorer Kit, which is our main water quality test kit. It contains everything you need to take a complete scientific water quality measurement. And one of these kits runs about $345. So they're a little expensive on the surface, but when I used to be a professional tester, I used to work at a conservation authority doing testing for a living, and the probe that I used to take pretty much the same samples cost $20,000. So this is really a budget deal as far as water quality test kits go. They're easy and accessible. You can use them everywhere. And I believe there are 10 or more test kits at the Akwesasne Environment Office for community use. So you can get in touch with the organizers and the folks at the Environment Office to discuss how they're using the test kits and any ideas for programs that you have. We have a great relationship, so always willing to send test kits through different grants and whatnot to help equip the community in Akwesasne. So I'm going to give you a little unboxing of the key tools that we're going to have in the kit, and then I've got a couple little demos to show you some of the tools in action. Unfortunately, I'm here in my office and not outside by the river, so they will be in little cups, which is sometimes less fun, but I'd love to come show you in the summer. So the first tool I'm going to show you is the Secchi Disk. So this is a tool that we use to measure water clarity. Water clarity is a really important parameter in determining the nutrient regimen and the plants that are available and the animals that can thrive in freshwater environments. So of course, it's just the disk that we drop down into the lake or into the river, and we check and we see where it disappears. And that shows the depth of sunlight penetration within that water body. And this is a really key tool that's been used for a couple hundred years in water bodies all over the world. The next tool I'm going to show you is the dissolved oxygen kit. So this is a small test kit that will tell you how much oxygen is in your water. This is especially important in wetlands because wetlands often have a tendency to become a little deoxygenated in parts, and you need to make sure there's enough oxygen in that wetland being produced by vegetation for critters and animals, wetland amphibians to be able to thrive. So this is a really key sample. It's a comparison test. So we have vials that you fill with water, and then you compare up to this reference rack. Each vial has a sample of indigo dye in it that reacts with oxygen. So when you fill that up with water, the dye reacts, and the bluer it gets, the more oxygen is in your water. So that's a really good estimate of oxygen. I'm just giving really quick overviews of these tools, by the way. If you want deeper information on how they work, it's all available on our website on waterrangers.ca. And we have an online course as well at training.waterrangers.ca. Maybe Laura can drop those links in the chat while I'm talking, or you can contact us afterwards, and I'd be happy to hook you up with any extra information you need. We've got these test strips, which are really key tools, even though they're so simple. People may have used some of these test strips before because they are the test strips that you use in swimming pools to test swimming pools. So they test 4 key parameters on the back. That's out of focus, but chlorine, pH, alkalinity, and total hardness. They're really easy. They're just little color-coded test strips that you dip into the water, and they change color. And then similar to the dissolved oxygen, you compare them on the back, and you get 4. There you go. You get 4 measurements in 2 seconds. So this is a really great tool, very flexible, and this is one that's really great to share with youth or elders or other people that you're taking out with you, because it's a very simple test, and we can all do it at the same time and compare our results, which is usually a great learning opportunity as well as a great data collection opportunity. We've got a little thermometer, which is good for measuring air or water temperature. This is a great portable thermometer. It's very light, so you can take it anywhere with you. And finally, we've got the tool that I'm excited to demo with you guys today. So this is our digital conductivity probe, conductivity meter. I usually teach kids in public school, so I like to do a little bit of talk back. So feel free to turn on your mic and answer some questions as I go through this. But does anyone want to say or take a guess at what I'm talking about when I'm talking about measuring conductivity? Do you know what we're conducting? It's not music.
Okay, I'm gonna go for it.
Thanks, Laura. Wow.
Could it be some measures of what's in the water, what's floating around?
That's it. That's it. So we're going to take a measure of the ions that are in the water by looking at the electrical conductivity. So we're looking at the conductance of electricity in our water samples. So something that we hear repeated very often is that water conducts electricity, which is only sort of half true, because it's not the actual water molecules, the H2O, that's conducting the electricity, but it's the dissolved ions that we find mixed into our water. So these are metals like iron, or salts like road salt, which is obviously a really huge issue in this part of the world on our territories, that pass the electrical current through the water. So if you were to pass an electrical current through deionized water, pure water with no ions in it, it's actually a pretty good insulator. It's not going to move the current very far. So by taking a measure of the amount of electrical current that runs through the water, we get an idea, an indication of the amount of ions that are in that water. This test, because it's quite simple, we can't tell exactly which ions are in the water, but each water body has a natural baseline of conductivity, what we'd expect to see, the amount of ions we'd expect to see based on its natural geology and watershed geography. So when there's a massive spike in that reading, does anyone want to take a guess as to what that might mean for us as people concerned with water quality?
That there's been some kind of spill.
That there's been some kind of spill, exactly. That there's been some sort of pollution event, whether that's a chemical spill, an industrial spill, increased runoff from development activity, so there's less buffering happening in the watershed, or something that happens a lot here in Ontario is an influx of road salt. And that can really harm ecosystems by throwing off pH balance. It can throw off oxygen balance. It can introduce toxins like heavy metals into the water, and some of our amphibian friends that breathe through their skin, that can spell out a lot of trouble for those critters, which can have rippling effects through the entire ecosystem. So I'm going to show you how the conductivity probe works and how we actually take one of these measurements. They're measured in a unit called microsiemens per centimeter, which, if you're a physics person, is the inverse of the resistance measurement, which is ohms per meter. And I'm going to test it with two samples that I took of snow melt from my yard. So this is snow melt that I took from my road out front. You can see it's got kind of like a tea color, a light brown tea color going on. And then this is a snow sample that I took from my backyard that no one had trampled on. So we can see these samples visually look quite a bit different, even though they were only taken, my yard's not that big, 20 meters apart. Does anyone want to take a guess as to how the conductivity in these two samples may compare, given what you just heard?
Yeah, your driveway will have a higher conductivity than your backyard.
Yeah, oh, well, I don't know. That's a good hypothesis that we're going to test right now at the probe. Why do you think that is?
Because of the salt that you might use on your driveway.
Yeah, so I don't salt my driveway, but yeah, there's road salt trucks that come down the road. There's road salt that gets tracked in from people's tires who are driving on the highway and then come off onto my little road. So we're gonna take a look. We'll investigate. So we turn it on just with this button. It goes through startup cycle. And how this probe works is at the bottom, we've got these two electrical conductors, and when we put it in the water, we're going to complete the circuit. So this probe sends a zap of electricity from this part of the battery up through the first conductor, through our water, and then back through the second conductor. So by measuring the conductance at that middle point through our water, we'll understand how much electricity it is actually conducting. So we can start with our clean snow sample. Dip it in. It also takes, I want to indicate at the bottom, it takes a temperature measurement since this value does change with temperature. We give it a minute to do its thing. Still climbing. And it looks like it's going to balance out about there at 34, 35 microsiemens per centimeter. So that's a very low conductivity reading. This is some very clean water with not a lot of ions in it, which is to be expected from freshly fallen snow. I don't know where you guys are, but it's been snowing here for days. So now we'll switch over and we'll take a measurement on the road salt water, which we hypothesize is going to be quite a bit higher. Whoa. We were right. This is some salty, salty water. Over 1,300. So as we hypothesized, this water is a lot more conductive. With this basic snow melt experiment, that's something we could easily guess from the visual analysis that we did of these two samples. Even if I hadn't told you where they had come from and you didn't have any information about where I had taken the samples, we probably could have guessed just from visual inspection that this water was a little more salty, contained more particles, and thus would have a higher conductivity. But when you're looking at two samples that maybe you don't know where they came from, or you take two samples on the same lake and they look the same, doing a conductivity test will give you a good idea of where your input sources are of more particles and ions if one bay generally has a higher conductivity than another bay. And it's also a good way to check if there's any of those influxes of road salt, spills, or pollutants that are coming into your waterway. And the great thing about conductivity, it's a very simple and reliable measurement to just use these probes, and it normalizes things based on the temperature. So it's a really great way to check the health of your water in an easy and systematic way. If you get a high conductivity reading and you don't really know what's going on, that really prompts you to take some next steps. So some next steps to investigate a high conductivity reading would be to do like an ion analysis at a lab. You can take particles, or you can take water samples to a lab, and they can do more high level analysis to find out exactly which ions are in that water and maybe causing problems. Or you could also just do a more holistic assessment of what's happening in your watershed, looking for any new potential point sources of pollution or any new development activity that may be raising that value. So like all these water quality tests, they're really a start to your investigation. So they give you a comprehensive snapshot of your water's health, but they also give you a lot of clues and leads to be able to do more holistic and high level assessment if needed through labs or mapping, GIS analysis, or working with your community to identify these development sources. So these probes are really robust and easy. You just shake them off, turn them off, put the cap back on, and you're good to take your next measurement. That's my little snow melt demo. The kits also come, I will add, with everything, a lot of extras that will help you take your tests a lot easier. For example, the sample cup that I used for the snow is something that comes with the kit, as well as these reacher sticks. So if you're taking a sample at an unsafe spot that you don't feel comfortable leaning over into the water, you can use this reacher stick to scoop your cup and take a water sample safely. It also comes with sample bags and gloves to pick up any algae issues you may find that you want to get lab tested, as well as a whole pocket full of guides and resources and data sheets for you to mark down your water quality assessments and then upload them onto our data platform when you're back at home. We also have field guides. Whoa, lots of stuff falling out. We also have field guides in the bags that explain each test in detail, so you really don't need to be an expert to use these tests. On the contrary, you can open them up not knowing anything about how to take a water quality assessment, and you're going to be able to work through the guide and take the measurements quite easily. If you're interested in taking water quality measurements, you can contact me, Juno at waterrangers.ca, or explore all the resources we have online. There's really a wealth of educational resources, videos, training tips to help get you started. Or like I mentioned, definitely get in contact with the Environment Office at Akwesasne, because they have a lot of kits and use them for a lot of really amazing community programming. So getting involved there would be a really great way to help contribute to water quality monitoring in your community. Thank you so much for attending today. And we've got lots of time for Q&A. So if you have any questions or any discussion you want to have on Water Rangers or the kits or the data platform or water quality at large, would love to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Juno, this is Amy Benedict, St. Regis
Hello.
Tribe. I have a question. If so the test that they're conducting with the kit and putting onto the Water Ranger site, that's nothing needs to be sent to the lab. Do you have a level of concern where if they do get a spike or something out of range, that there is a mechanism for them to send it to a lab?
So we don't work with any labs actually, but we will alert you when there is an issue or it looks like something that should be investigated further. I know of some labs in the region that we can definitely direct you to, although they can get quite expensive. But we do have also some government agencies and conservation authorities who receive alerts from our data platform when things are looking out of range or they need to be investigated further. So you may get follow-ups from MNRF or local conservation authority who have the means to lab test that on their budget. So there's definitely different opportunities to do that higher level analysis, although it's not a service that we directly provide, but we will do our best to kind of link you with the people you need to get that done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Has anyone in the audience used a Water Rangers kit before or done water testing before?
It's Amy again. I know I've never seen this Water Rangers kit before, and I think it's really, really interesting, especially considering you're trying to get community buy-in and community stewardship. So I think there would be people interested in becoming a water ranger or just, a water sampler just for their own peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of different scales of getting involved. We work a lot at an organizational scale. So we'll help equip these kits to, for example, the Environment Office at Akwesasne, local lake stewardship committees, lake associations. We'll work with municipalities, conservation authorities to send them kits, but we also work with really a lot of individuals, just local people who are concerned with their water quality health and want to monitor their lake or their river for their own kind of peace of mind and information. So we try to make it as low barrier to entry as possible. Like I said, this kit is $345, but we do have smaller kits with just kind of the essentials. You don't get the Secchi Disk or the oxygen kit, but that kit's a lot cheaper. It runs $125. And it really provides a lot of community benefits. You get a lot of community buy-in. I find when working with, for example, a lake association or a local environment committee, people get engaged in really amazing and interesting ways. As people learn to water test and take some responsibility for going out and doing a monthly test, we really aim for tests to be monthly. You form a deeper connection with that spot that you're monitoring. And we find that volunteers often ripple out into doing garbage cleanup, into doing policy advocacy in their community, which they're very well equipped for when they have knowledge and data as to how those systems are changing and what those systems need for better protection. And all kinds of really amazing community advocacy work that stems out of just first volunteering and learning how to do this monitoring. So it's a really great way to strengthen community, build that environment network, and also just as an individual, keep tabs on what's happening on your waterway so you can be a resource for your neighbors. I'm glad you came so I could share the kit with you, because you've never seen it before.
Thank you so much, Juno, for that amazing presentation. Do we have any further questions at this time?
It's Lee, I just wanted to apologize for going missing. I got a call from the health unit I had to take, so thanks for stepping in, Brittany.
Oh, absolutely, no problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having us.
Yes, that was a great presentation. I can definitely see you doing an amazing job in schools. You present well and interactively, so that's great. Thank you for that.
I try.
Good job. Yep, I recognize that for sure. So our next presentation is going to be the Great River Report, and that'll be put on by the St. Lawrence River Institute and MCA Environment Program. That'll be taking place at 2:15. So if everybody would like to take a little break, we will reconvene around 2 o'clock.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Juno. Thanks, it was excellent.